Okay. Hi, Lacey. This is such a special live stream. So as you guys know, Megan and I are transitioning to not working together anymore, but obviously still being great friends. And yeah, this is like our last one together. So we were doing these every month, then we moved to every other month. So I feel like you guys just know Megan. She's been doing this. She's been here from the beginning. She's been, whether on live stream or not, building this community with me the whole time. So anyway, thank you for being here. I love you. I'm so happy to do this with you. Oh shoot.
Yay, I'm
Megan
so
was having
excited. And I feel like
internet
it's been a while,
timeout.
so I feel like this
Oh,
is
there
this
she
is
is.
good
Okay,
to
I think
kind of
we just have a delay. Go ahead,
sorry.
Megan. Sorry.
Sorry. I hopefully it'll just kind of like sort itself out while we're here.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
no,
Okay.
I'm excited to be here. So
Okay. So, hey, Alyssa, you've been looking forward to this one. Good, good. We have like so much to share. So, I'm going to just drop like a quick link. What we're not going to go over really is like why we made these changes. I'm going to link up like the whole email we did on our team changes just because I feel like we've communicated around this a lot. And so I don't want to bore you on all of that today. And also, Megan and I would ideally prefer not to cry this whole live stream. So we're gonna skip right over
just one
that,
goal.
guys.
We have one goal.
When we talk about doing this, we're like, do it and cry the whole time or don't do it. It's tough. But so anyway, I'm gonna link that up if you're like, wait, what happened? Update me. That link that I just dropped, it's alituplife.com/team changes, is the gist of like what we're doing, all of this kind of stuff in terms of like why we made these decisions. And one of the reasons we kind of wanted to do this today, I think, is to show that like it really can be a good process. Like, I think it's easy to say one thing in an email and you're like, yeah, sure, it's fine, but really. And so we just want to say yes, but really. Oh shoot, I think Megan, can you hear me? Okay. You froze. So I just want to make sure
I'm
you're
so sorry. I can't.
sorry.
You've just been like all like jumbly with your words, so I actually haven't heard anything. You said. It like kind of did like the weird thing, and so I'm just like smiling.
Like, yeah, sounds great.
I
Totally.
feel like I tried to like closing a couple windows and stuff like that. So I feel like we're good.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
Yeah. No, you're better now. I was basically just saying like, oh, I won't say it again. But I was basically just saying like, this is sort of like, it's easy to say one thing in an email, but it's like different to like experience, like, no, we really are good. And we're really making this decision from a place of like wanting it to be good and not wanting to work
Yeah.
together to a point where we're both like in a place where it's not good. I mean, I think that there's so much to be said for that. So anyway, we just kind of wanted to like model that, demonstrate that, because I think that it can be one thing to hear it, but I think it is another to like see it.
100%. Yeah.
Misha said, "Why not a vibe to cry the whole live stream?" I mean, we're not totally opposed to it, but we'll see how it goes.
We'll see.
And okay, so two things I want to say before we get going, before I forget. So one is giveaway is $100 gift card. So you guys know the drill for joining us, for being here today. Any comment, you're entered to win a $100 gift card. Second thing is very exciting news. So we had actually have had someone lined up for season 10 of the podcast, but something came up for her and she's not able to move forward, which obviously sucks in its own way, but is fun in the sense that we are opening podcast applications, which I don't think we've done in a while, like a long while, actually. At least 2 seasons, I think. So it's a pin post in this group, the application. It's from Sabs, or Sabrina. Sorry, I used to calling her that. It's from Sabrina. So pin post at the top. If you're interested, applications are due Friday. We're doing it kind of quickly because we usually try to give 2 weeks, but because we had someone, we were like actually slated to start recording tomorrow. So we want to pick someone and move forward quickly. So all that to be said, yay, podcast apps are open. I could also drop the link in here later, but anyway, they're there. And now we shall begin. Okay, so one of the things that I want to share about very openly is that it has been a bit of a fucking shit show. Megan, do you feel like that's an accurate statement?
I feel like it started as a shit show.
Yes. Okay. That's a better way to
Yes.
say it. Megan putting the positive
I feel
spin.
like it kind of had a peak and it's evened out and it has smoothed out since then.
You're so right. You're so right. Okay. So it started out as the shittiest of shit shows, and now it is like way, way, way better. But I just want to be honest about that because I've told some of my clients about it in private, and they've been like, oh my God, it's been so helpful to hear that. It's so normalizing, all that kind of stuff. And so I just wanted to share a little bit more about it. So I hired someone who I knew as like a friend of a friend. So it was kind of like tangential. I had met them in person. I interviewed them twice, like felt confident in my decision. And then something happened on the first day of like our official start that made it really clear to me that we couldn't move forward. And so we actually stopped, like we had to like, I mean, I guess I don't even know if you call it firing because it was like barely starting, but we basically had to like decide to, terminate that person that day. Um, and it's really funny too, because I am typically a person who is very like, nope, I'm done, I'm out. Like I'm very decisive, very quick. Megan is more someone who gives benefit of the doubt, gives a lot more grace in certain ways than myself. And so I was like trying to check myself for a minute. I was like, maybe it's not as bad as I think it is. And Megan texted me and said, can I call you? And I said, yes. And she goes, I want you to know that if you're worried, if it's as bad as you think it is, it actually was. And I was like, oh my God, thank God for you. Because you know how you like sometimes need someone to reality check you. And because I know Megan is someone that always gives the benefit of the doubt, like I really like once she said that, I was like, okay, I can trust myself. I am not being crazy here. Like this cannot work. I'm not going to share the specifics just out of respect for the fact that that's not my story. But that was very tough in the sense of like it had been such a build up to this person starting. Megan had done so much work behind the scenes. I mean, and we really felt like, do you recall, Megan? We were trying to do 3 months of overlap. Is that right?
So, sort of. I think what the plan was because we had a very specific start date that we had in mind because one of our VAs
That's right.
was going on maternity leave. And so we were like, oh, this is perfect. We have a new person starting on the same day that our team member is leaving on maternity leave so she can step in. And we had a whole plan mapped out where and this VA was primarily doing a lot of client management, and that's what we wanted the new person to start with. And so we were like, this lines up perfectly. So I want to say it was meant to be the middle second week or third week, sometime in February
Yeah.
was when like that transition was supposed to start. So like a month and a half actually,
Yeah.
because at that point,
Yes,
April 1st was
1st.
going to
Yeah.
be our last day together.
Yes. So that was like quite like jarring too, in the sense that we had this person going on maternity leave. We had a whole plan for it. Megan had like built every other plan we had like around that. And it wasn't like, oh, okay, it's kind of not working out, but we have like help for a few weeks. It was like literally like day of, we were like, this cannot move forward. And so that was really intense. And then I was like, okay, I need to like get my shit together and take this more seriously. Michelle missed the first 10 minutes and missed everything. Jeff, I totally get why you want to know. I'm nosy too. I would very much want to know. Um, okay, so then I was like, I need to get my shit together and like take this more seriously. And not that I wasn't taking it seriously before, but it was more like I was like thinking of within my network and stuff like that. I hadn't really like gone far outside of my network to think about hiring. And so I built out an amazing hiring process. I'm going to give myself a real pat on the back. I actually just gave it to one of my clients. And Megan also gave me input on it in terms of like testing them with something, all of that kind of stuff. Actually, Megan, you have a template on that people can buy, right?
Yeah.
Whitespace.team/templates.
It's probably /hiring for that one. But that is a link that probably would get them there eventually too. So it's fine.
Okay, /hiring. Okay, I put it in. So anyway, so good. Megan's hiring process is amazing. I used a bunch of what she suggested in terms of like how I structured things, loved it, and got some really great candidates, did several interviews, decided to move forward with someone.
Can I pause you? Like, just one thing, what I think was really interesting about that was then we had a conversation about where we kind of talked through a bunch of the different candidates, and like it was kind of a great situation because you felt like I have a pool of all great candidates, right? And so it was kind of,
Yes.
and I personally think that shows like a really good kind of like hiring process and like job description, application process, interview process, etc. When you kind of get to the end and you're like, cool, I could choose any of these people and I can see so much potential in each one. So I feel like that was a really good place to be at that point too.
You're so right. That's so true. So I think there were like 5 people where I was like, I would be happy with any of these people, but I had a really clear top 2. And so I moved forward with one of them and did the whole thing again. Like Megan restructured the whole plan, redid everything, sent them a computer, but we also sent the first person a computer, which we do not have. But sent them a computer, like did the whole spiel. Megan and I get on a call with her. We do the onboarding. We know she's still in a different job. So like that, we knew that. And it was kind of difficult because some of it was like, what's the way to say that? Like some of her timeline did not work super well with our timeline. And so even Megan was like, it's fine. We'll figure it out. It's not ideal, but we got it. Like we were really like, we're going to make this work. Okay. So then, right after we did the onboarding, she basically tried to put in her 2 weeks with her current employer and found out she was under a contract that did not allow her to do that. So then that one fell through. And mind you, at this point, we're like weeks later. Anyway. So anyway, just like share all this to say, it has truly been a shit show. But one, Megan and I have a great relationship. And I think that that's what makes all of this okay. Like, in some ways I was like laughing so hard because I was saying to Megan, like, I hope you realize that this is like the evidence of like how great you have been and like what a challenge it's going to be to operate without you. But it really was just like, Michelle says, what is this saga? Right. I know everybody's like, oh my God. It really was like, what is happening? I think when the person emailed to tell us, the second person, that they couldn't move forward, Megan just sent me a message that was like, are you okay? I think that was all it said. And then she was like, bad question. You're probably not. What can I do to help? Or something like that.
Yeah. I was like, wait, that's probably not the question to be asking right now, but
yes. And so then I was like, oh my God, because then I was starting to feel really fucking guilty with Megan because she's been making all of these arrangements, all of these concessions, redoing plans a lot. So it was like very nice because we were both trying to take care of each other. Like I kept being like, I'm so fucking sorry. As you guys know, it was supposed to be April 1st. It is April 8th. Megan is still here because of all of this. And she like very graciously decided to stay on. So that person had that happen. And then like I said, I had like a very obvious top 2. And then the person who was my second actually had emailed me and reached back out as like a follow-up. And I was like, this is a sign. Like, I feel like the universe is like, Lace, you picked wrong. Here you go. like, let's figure this out. And so now to just wrap that up in a bow, we have hired someone else. It is that person. She's amazing. She's been doing a fantastic job. I'm excited for y'all to get to know her. Many of my clients have already met her and interacted with her. Her name is Crystal. You guys will get to know her too, but yeah, it was just such a long road to get there. So I wanted to share all that to normalize, like, you can have a great process, great intention. You can talk to someone multiple times and it can still be a total mess. But also, like, I think you have to be so careful to not make that mean like you can't figure it out or keep going. You know, I feel like we just kept figuring it out, which I'm like so proud of us for. And when I say us, I mostly mean Megan just kept figuring it out.
I feel like
Megan,
I didn't. What?
do you have anything you want to share on that, like your perspective of that time?
I feel like it was just, I honestly kept just feeling bad for you because I was like, oh, I've been there. Like I've been through like hiring people and then like, you know, you think it's gonna work out and it doesn't. And so I feel like that um is challenging in and of itself. And then because we were on a timeline and there was a little bit of not like a time crunch necessarily, but it's not like, oh, we have plenty of time to figure this out
Yeah.
whenever we find the right person. So I feel like, you know, I know that that can add extra pressure. So I was basically like, cool, we can rework the process. Like, you know, that's fine. And I think that my goal was to really just like make sure that you were able to find the right person because that, like, ideally it wasn't something where like you just choose somebody else and then like they are on for a week and then it doesn't work. You know what I mean? Where it was like, I feel very good about where we're at now, where as soon as like we started with Crystal, I was like, okay, cool. Like, I feel like
We got
the all of
it.
like the yeah, like we got this, all of the craziness is over. Like now it's just kind of normal, like normal stuff of transition things and the busyness and details of that. But it wasn't, you know, kind of the, oh my gosh, how do we handle this? Now what? You know what I mean?
Yes, totally. And I think that, you know, it's just the same thing as with anything in business. Like we're humans dealing with other humans, and it's always a bit of a crapshoot because of that sometimes. And I think the more we can just like normalize that, like no matter how great your process is or how long you've been doing this or how much you interview someone or whatever, like that, like none of us are immune from this, but I think like it obviously did work out in a good way. So that's where we're at now. And I think it would be really helpful to just like share how we're kind of doing that transition and some of the onboarding, because I feel like that's always stuff people want to know too. But if there's anything that you guys specifically really would love for us to talk about, let us know that too. Because I feel like that would be, you know, what we want to dive into. Obviously, we're like an open book in terms of sharing any of this. But Megan, I'm gonna kind of like give you the reins a little bit here to talk about like I think you've set up so many good things in terms of like onboarding SOPs, check-ins, all that kind of stuff. And I feel like it's such an undertaking to translate, I mean, 8 years almost of knowledge to someone. So just kind of walk us through that, because I feel like that's helpful, even if someone's not doing like 8 years of knowledge transfer, kind of just like the idea of like, how do you like move tasks and information to someone?
Yeah, I think that the biggest thing for me was to, number one, set up like a very clear, and we kind of alluded to this before, but like a very clear timeline and kind of like step-by-step process of like, what am I going to delegate and pass off first, and kind of chunk that off where it wasn't like overnight. I just like, here, Crystal, like, here are all the things. And like, because it was very important to me to not overwhelm especially during the first few weeks. So I think that the first week was very much like, let's just kind of let her get the lay of the land. Let's just have her kind of get to know the business. So I had actually put together a bunch of documents, and this was actually probably years ago, to be honest. But I'd had documents for the business that was like, we had kind of like a business overview that's like an introduction to Lacey and a lit up life and who we serve and what we do, and you know what like kind of just like a general overview of the business. We had, different things of a list of different types of content to get to know Lacey and get to know, what she's all about, what the business is all about, all of that kind of stuff. So I have a lot of those materials already. Go ahead.
I want to say something about that because I think that's so important. Like when we bring on someone new, we really we want to pay for their time to watch live streams, listen to podcasts, read content, things like that. Megan has always normalized that, and we've always done that. And I think that's really important because I feel like so often people are so quick to be like, I want you to understand the task, but someone doesn't necessarily understand the messaging, the point, the kind of the things we're really trying to convey with our business. And I think when you really do that, you feel more invested overall. The pieces click into place, they make more sense. I remember when I worked in nonprofit, I worked my way up really fast. So I had an entry level job and I became a director within a few years. And I remember once I was at that level thinking, oh my God, I would have performed entirely differently as an employee if I understood more of the things that I understand now, just in terms of why we do what we do and things like that. And so we really try to put that into it of it matters that you understand what our message and mission is just as much if not more than it matters if we train you on our email provider first.
Mm-hmm. And I think there's definitely opportunity to do both, right? So for example, as if you're training somebody on emails or something like that, just letting them know hey, make sure that you take the time, take 2 minutes to read the email as you're setting it up.
Yeah.
Right? Small things like that, because I think that, I definitely have known this, over the years, but I definitely see it in team members too, where the small things, there's just so many small things that you start to pick up on and learn, and kind of context that you get when you're just kind of taking the time to consume and read through emails, watch videos, all of that kind of stuff. And so I feel really encouraging your team and telling them, hey, this is a great way to start to become familiar with the business, because ideally you want somebody who isn't just kind of checking things off a to-do list, but they're doing tasks and really understanding kind of how it fits into the actual business and operations and stuff like that.
Yeah, I think that's so important. And doing that early and not later. It's not an afterthought, right? It was one of the first things you did, as opposed to oh, we'll get to that, and then you never get to it.
Exactly. Yeah. And so that was really almost the entire first week was really a lot of just that kind of onboarding and getting helping her get familiar with things, having her go through the website to see what do we sell? What do we sell it for? Things like that, where you don't necessarily always think about that, but that is something where, just making sure that a new person is kind of starting to get familiar with all of those aspects. And then we really brought her. So then from there, I really had it mapped out a week by week. Then there was a week of client management and inbox support taking over. And then, I don't know what happened after that, but then, extra marketing things and whatever. And so we basically just mapped it out so that it was, again, something where not everything was being delegated all at once. And it's not just a ton of information that's super overwhelming. It really was kind of, I don't want to say dripped out over time. And I think that that's really helpful with team members, from the team member side. That is something where well, one, like I said, they're not going to get as overwhelmed. They can also really focus on doing those things, learn those things, get confident in knowing how to do these things, and then you add on. So you're kind of constantly building and adding on more and more each week. So I really tried to focus on that type of thing. And then from my perspective, it wasn't as overwhelming because I was able to kind of piece out my to-dos and my, I'm updating SOPs and any videos that I had to do and things like that. So it's easier for me to kind of map that out for myself so that I'm not doing like a crazy amount in one day or something like that.
I think what's also really important, excuse me, excuse me, what's also really important about that I just feel like I'm like so on a soapbox about too is like the good things take time, energy, and effort, right? Like if you want to onboard someone well, if you want it to feel seamless, like I was saying that to Megan, I was like, this process, well, besides the beginning, but like after the beginning, this process has felt so seamless. And I know how much work you put into making it feel seamless. And I think that that's like what we have to acknowledge and stuff like that. Like from my perspective, it's been very seamless to like onboard. And that's because Megan put so much intention into it. And I just think that that's what we always miss in business. Like we're always looking for the part where it's seamless. And then we forget the part where like it takes a lot of care and consideration and intention and time and planning to get there. Or if it's not seamless, then we make that person wrong or whatever. We're like, oh, this team member is just not it, or, things like that. And it's like, that's probably not true in most cases. I mean, listen, we went through some people. I'm not saying it can't ever happen, but I'm just saying like it's typically a lot of times not true. It's just that we're like fire hosing them, or we're expecting, like I can't expect my new team member to be Megan, who has been here for 8 years overnight. Like we have to be reasonable about these things. And I think we have to realize it always takes time. And I just feel like this is like such a thing that is just like glossed over in our space so much. I did a reel today, not to derail, but it was basically like very unpopular opinion is that most people are selling no trade, or most people want no trade-offs, and everyone that's selling no trade-offs can't deliver on it. And that's the problem in our industry, and so it's like the trade-off of a seamless process is a lot of work to set that up. And I just think it's so important to say that.
Mm-hmm. And also, I think that it's important to just kind of like say too, a lot of this is stuff that like we already had a lot of SOPs. Like I've been in the business for 8 years. So like
Right.
a lot of this was stuff, like I said, like we've had a lot of things in place already for multiple years. And we've really always prioritized having SOPs and having streamlined systems
Yeah.
and having a lot of that where it wasn't, I never created systems with the intention of like, well, someday I won't be able to let up life. So like somebody else needs to learn how to do this. I always did it in like just because I feel like that's what businesses need. Like I think that it should be something where like anyone should be able to come in and take over this process or understand it or, whatever. And so I think that, even if it's just you in your business, or even if you have like one VA or something like that, I really do like always say that you should be creating SOPs, even if they're super simple, even if it's not totally built out, because some of ours were super outdated. Like I found some that were from like 2019 and I was like, okay, maybe we should update this one. But I do think that it's something where like, having something to build off of is so much easier for when you do need it. You know what I mean?
Totally. And I think it's also one of those things where it's like, even for your own sake of like, what if you want to delegate that to someone down the,
Right.
not because you're leaving, but you're just like, this task isn't a task for me anymore. I want to delegate it. Like, I think it's so helpful to have that. Yeah, just huge.
Yeah.
Michelle was saying it's the same with style, which I think that totally makes sense, right? Like it takes a lot to look effortless. And I feel like that's
Yeah. Oh, that's such a good
true
point.
with anything,
Yeah.
but that's so
Yeah.
true. Like, yeah, I've never like I feel like there's such an expectation of things coming easy in all regards. And it's like usually it's not that again, but it doesn't mean that
Mhm.
it can't still be good, and all of that is just different. Um
Yeah.
Another thing that I think we did that I really like that you set up, Megan, is doing like really regular daily check-ins. And so I was
Mhm.
thinking maybe you could talk about that for a moment.
Yeah. Yeah. I think like, so I would say like there were really two, for me, like two big focuses like during the onboarding process. Like one was obviously like delegating, sharing SOPs, like straight, like making sure that that all felt clear and starting to pass like my knowledge and like the processes. But then also like making sure that we created a like structure where we could get feedback on anything that like wasn't clear, that we could do check-ins. So what we did was I set up daily check-ins. We have Crystal in base camp with us right now. And so I just set up daily check-ins, once in the morning, once in the afternoon, where I had a set of questions. And it's just simple questions like, in the morning, like, what did you work on yesterday? Like, how did it go? Where are you stuck? What are you working on today? Like those types of things. And then at the end of the day, it was a simple check-in of what'd you work on? What questions are coming up? Where did you get stuck? What can we do better? So it was just this like automated up, they were just going out automatically every day. And so it was an automated structure to prompt us and Crystal to make sure that we're having touch points regularly and really making sure that you know, we're having that like open communication around like what's working and what's not. And I think like, she's been great. And so this wasn't an issue, but I do think like things like that are really important so that if it was something where she was like, hey, this is really overwhelming, or this isn't clear, or I feel like I need another week to really like get in the swing of this before we move on to other things. And so like just having those opportunities for a new team member to also like give you feedback, and also kind of share like where they're stuck or what they're needing. Like I just think it's so important to like be able to create that space for it so that you're not just like, oh, a month later, like, how's it been going? Like, you know what I mean? And so
Everything good? Yeah.
And I think that especially for a new team member, like it can be really difficult to like ask for support and ask for help. And so if you have that space and you're prompting it, I just think that that is so important.
It's so funny because I feel like one of the biggest things for me, I'm sure so many of you relate to this, but is like, what I was most worried about wasn't like, oh, is someone going to get our process, or is our email going to go out on time or whatever the fuck. What I was most worried about is like, how am I going to build trust with this person? Because the thing that Megan and I have is trust. Like that's what we built. And again, it's over 8 years, so it's different. But I mean, I trust Megan implicitly. It's so funny. I just have to share this because it's so funny. This is such a random aside, but it's like, it's when I think of how much I trust you, this is it. But Jen and I, have Dateable together, right? And our accountants emailed us and they were like, why was $10,000 transferred out of the business into a personal savings account? And it was me. I thought I was transferring it from my other business account and I took it out of Dateable because they're all in like the same banking app. And I was just probably like moving quickly. And I like called Jen like mortified. I was like, I am so embarrassed. I'm so mortified. And Jen was like, Lacey, if you called me right now and said that you had a good feeling about a horse and you betted on the horse, I would be like, it makes sense. I really trust your intuition. She's like, that's how much I trust you. I don't give a shit. It's fine. And that is like what Megan and I have built over the years. Like Megan could do anything in the business. And I'd be like, oh no, that probably makes sense. She probably had a really good reason. So what I was most concerned is like, how are we going to make sure that this new person and I can start building trust together, not just Crystal, but like anyone in that role. Like, how can we start to build trust along the way? And I actually feel like the daily check-in has been such a good way to do that because I just feel like I have a handle on what's going on without having to be in all of the details. And I have a way to see like how Crystal is thinking about things or saying things or what she's asking for, what she's not asking for. And so to me, that's just been so amazing. And I think that it's such a tool for that I didn't really expect to be as helpful in that way. Like I thought having a daily check-in would be helpful, period, but not like in terms of the trust building. And that's been like really great. So I think that that's just such a recommendation. Like even if you're not hiring someone full-time or whatever, like having those like places to have check-ins outside of just like we get shit done, I think is so useful.
100%. And I think like one thing too, it's a temporary thing when you're onboarding. So we did daily check-ins for the first, I think, 3 weeks. And now we've moved down to just once a week. And so you can like it's kind of the same with calls in general. So I always think that like more communication and more calls, more touch points at the beginning is always so important for so many reasons. But I do think like it does build trust. It creates kind of like environment where you are just more connected. We're like with what they're doing, what questions they have, like what they're needing, all of that. And so I think that having more communication at the beginning is so important. And then you can kind of like slowly wean yourself down
Yeah.
to like a more reasonable, like long-term cadence with that. But I think that that's something that we've really tried to do is kind of like give her more support up front and then kind of start to pull back to once a week check-ins, things like that.
Yes. So I think if like, I mean, I don't know if there's like a ton else to share on the like practical notes of that, except to say like, I just can't stress enough how much it is like Megan had a plan. She had a plan each week. She had a plan for how we would check in. She had a plan for what we would roll out when. And I just think like, I'm not saying you have to have all of that perfect if you're hiring. Like, obviously, I'm in a very fortunate position that Megan was able to do that. And like we maybe are on the extreme end of that because like Megan's so planful and she's had so many SOPs and stuff. But I also do think it really matters. Like, I think that if you want to have a great experience, just pulling someone in and expecting them to kind of like sink or swim is not going to be the best fit. And I think that that's when so many people get in that mindset of like, it's so hard to hire. There aren't good people out there, blah, 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 blah. And like, that has not been my experience at all. And I think it is so in so many ways how you approach it. Like, it's like it's sort of like the parallel of like dating apps. You know, people are either like, I really like dating and dating apps. Like, I have a great experience. I always meet really nice people, da da da. Or they're like, I fucking hate everyone on there. And I think hiring's so similar where it's like you either are oriented to like, oh, like I typically find good people. I typically have good support. Like when I got past the first road bump. Like Megan was saying, we had really, really great candidates. It wasn't like everyone sucks and I guess this person's fine. It was not that at all. It was like we have really, really great people. They have really relevant experience. They're really on top of things. Like I remember when Crystal emailed me back to schedule our interview, she put like I don't even know how she did it. She put like a booking link to schedule on her Google Calendar, like in the email. And I was just like, oh my God, that's so impressive. Like, even just from this interview process, I learned something new. Like, I didn't even know I could do that. But it was just like, that's such a small example, but it's like, oh, there's just like people with like skill sets that I don't know and things that I don't know and so much to offer. And I just think like that's the Crystal wants you to know there's a shortcut in Gmail in the menu to add it in. It's really cool though. Um, but like there's so much possibility there, but I think it goes to this. Like if you make the process feel good from your end, if you have a process, if you onboard in a way that is like thoughtful and intentional, and I think like that is kind of the important thing here. And just like if you offboard in a way that is thoughtful and intentional, like, you know, Megan and I have been really Mm, I don't even want to say like cautious because I don't think that's the right word. But like, I feel like we've both been very like, hey, I'm going to share about it in this way, or I'm going to talk about it like this, or like, even just in terms of like how we're approaching like offboarding together. Like, I just think all of it is like a relationship and it takes intention. And I just feel like that is not like the sexy message, but it's true. Like, that's what's going to give you great relationships that stand the test of like whether you end up working together or not. Like I know if whatever 5 months from now I'm like, oh my God, I don't know how we do that. Like I can reach out to Megan. It's not like, well, we're fucked. I don't know. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like yeah, Megan's like, who the fuck you can. But but like I just think that that's so important. I feel like it's what you and I have preached on almost every live stream we've been on from the beginning is like your relationship with each other is everything. And that's even something I'm looking forward to with Crystal is like, in some ways we haven't gotten to go there as much yet because she's been working with Megan so directly. And so that will transition too. And we'll get to work on that even more. And I just think that is like the foundation of all of it. And like, if there's like one message I feel like Megan and I always have to share, it's that, you know.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think too, like, I think that that is really what allows you to like just handle things no matter what happens, right? Where like I never really felt like when we were going through kind of like the messiness at the beginning, I was never like, oh my God, like, are we going to be able to figure this out? Or like it never felt, there was just so much trust. There was so much like we have so much trust in each other, but also in like our dynamic
Yeah.
of we know that like no matter what happens, we will figure this out and it's going to be fine. And so I think that like that is just such an important thing to like try to build with your team and have that like even if it's not necessarily like oh my gosh I trust you, what did Jen say, to you could buy a
To bet on a
racehorse or
horse.
something. It doesn't even necessarily need to be like that level, but just like having just having something where like you know that like cool, if something happens, if something breaks, if something blows up, if something bad happens, whatever it is, or just like things that are unexpected, you trust that you and your team can figure it out together. And I think that that's really built off of like the relationship, right?
It's so true. I mean, even like, I think, this is just like a random example too, but, Crystal had like lost power. They had a really terrible storm and had lost power during this like onboarding process. And you know, even just the trust of being like, it's okay. I know she's gonna like pick it back up. I know she's gonna like jump back. Like I wasn't like, oh God, are we gonna miss stuff? Or like there's just these little things that matter of like, do you trust someone to show up even if X happens or even when it's hard or even whatever. And I just think, yeah, it's so important. Michelle said, random question, Megan, what was your background before you started Whitespace?
Mm-hmm. Before I started Whitespace, it was like copywriting.
Yeah.
Um, and then before that, I feel like I had like
I
I've
was
never
just gonna
had.
say which lifetime.
I know. I feel like I've had like so many different things, none of which is actually relevant to what I do now. Other than like I was an office assistant like for a while,
Yeah.
at a campground. But then I taught I taught English in Martinique. Then I taught French to middle school students. And I feel like there's other things that I'm forgetting, but
I feel like
so,
Whitespace just evolved for you so organically. Like you were doing copy, then
yeah,
you started with me as a VA kind of like on the side and then realized
yeah,
how much you love that. And it like is like one of those things where I feel like it's so hard when you're in it, but it's so obvious now, like the path to
yeah.
that, right? Mm.
Well, and I think that that was something where like I have like a very weird and random like assortment of skills and background and stuff like that. But like weirdly, all of the different things started to kind of like piece together in different ways. And so then, and it was kind of like I just responded to like the things that my clients were needing. And so that's really what I started to build off of. So, but
Yeah.
yeah, like it just kind of, like you said, happened organically where I just kept kind of like, oh, this sounds fun, or this is like kind of the next thing. So that's really what how I've evolved over it.
I love that. Michelle says, I feel like trust is such a decision. I've seen it both ways. Sometimes people sort of expect someone to earn their trust, which can honestly be a really hard place to start. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And then there's the benefit of the doubt where you start with trust and then it just builds or could devolve from there. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think like we definitely operate from a place of like, let's trust first, which I think after the first two was a little harder to do, to be honest. But still the vibe. Because yeah, I think the only way you earn trust is over time. And so like you have to create the space to do that. So yeah, totally agree. Well, Megan, I love you. Thank you for being here. You're the best. Megan is still going to be around in so many ways. We're still going to bug her to consult with us from time to time. You guys can bug her to consult with you if you want. How can they do that?
Yeah. You can go to whitespace.team, or whitespace.team/services. And I am doing some VIP days. I think I have space for one in May and one in June.
I love that.
Um, and so yeah. That's what
Amazing.
I'm
I
gonna
love
do.
you. I'm so grateful to you. I know this community
Thank
is so
you.
grateful to you. I know my clients are so grateful to you. So many people were
Mm.
like losing their shit when I said that Megan was leaving. They were like, who will help me? I'm like, Megan will train them. It will be fine. But I love you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart and from everyone here. We're so grateful to you.
Yes, thank you so much. Love you so much.
All right. Bye, guys.